There's a video that I saw recently in my recommended, and I wanted to go ahead and take a look at it with y'all. And it's about a local community freaking out over flock cameras. And just, if you don't know what a flock camera is, it is like Kleenex right now. It's nomenclature for any of the cameras right now that are being used to spy on American citizens, ostensibly for our safety. And we're constantly given a bunch of reasons why we are safer with flock cameras. The increased surveillance, meaning that, oh, well, we've been able to, get a certain number of stolen cars since the flock cameras were installed, brought back to their owners, which only really makes sense if it's an increase over the previous amount of per capita stolen vehicles that have been taken and also found. And also, that number only really matters as well if the cars being stolen and retrieved outweighs the increased surveillance that we have had to undergo. Like, we've seen a lot of things where, like, flock cameras are being pointed at fucking places where children happen to be a lot. And again, the argument's going to be, oh, well, it's in case somebody tries to kidnap your child. But again, the idea of some random police officer just sitting there staring at your kid for 8 hours during the day feels kind of fucking weird regardless. Will says, you mean stolen cars or cars that have had their license plates number scanned incorrectly? And that one likely could be the case too. It's not a what I mean, it's what they mean. Peltor says, chop down a flock camera near you is your civic duty. Remember, it's illegal to chop down a flock camera, and so you should not finish this sentence. And that's about as far as I can go there. But let's go ahead and take a look at this particular video here, what's going on.
Turning now to Flock, which again, I think is just like data centers sweeping the nation in terms of an actual populist movement rising up against flock cameras, mostly put in people's neighborhoods with very little scrutiny and or public input. We are now seeing that manifest through the democratic process. Here we recently had an
It's so weird that the democratic process was not part of installing these cameras in the first place. Like, does anybody else find that weird? I saw a meme that, like, doesn't make any sense if you scrutinize it, but I still kind of understand where it's coming from. The gist of the meme is that for decades, we can't get trains built in America because the democratic process to getting them built is just such a fucking hassle. And yet, for some reason, we can get flock cameras built everywhere without any scrutiny whatsoever. Now, the obvious problem with this line of logic is that setting up a camera on a previously existing aluminum pole or putting an aluminum pole up and putting a camera on it is a very different conundrum to putting up a fuck ton of railway across the United States. So I get what the meme's getting at. The meme is trying to communicate the frustration that one of these things is considered important by our lawmakers and one of these things is considered not. It can't really do much more besides communicate that, though. But let's go ahead and continue.
Extraordinary confrontation between a Sullivan County, Tennessee commissioner, Joe Carr, who recently said that the Flock CEO should be hung for treason to a representative during a meeting. Let's take a listen to the local...
I agree. Look, if I'm going to say that the United Healthcare CEO deserved to be shot because of the amount of bodies that they have created, the amount of increased stalking opportunities that have been created by Flock is certainly another reason that I'm not super big on these things existing. Now, I say that arguing at the same time that I don't believe in the death penalty. So maybe I probably need to go ahead and analyze that for a second, because somebody's going to try to call me out on that. I know. But the difference is the death penalty is the state having the authority to execute somebody, which I do not believe in. But I do believe that self-defense is always warranted. And if somebody breaks into your house, a form of self-defense is perfectly reasonable. Somebody breaks into your house and you kill them, you can be against the death penalty and also protect yourself from that person. I would have preferred the legal system take care of the United Healthcare CEO instead. The problem is the legal system will not do so. Like, the legal system cannot handle a situation where a person who has bought both sides of the political aisle is the one in power. Like, that's just not going to happen without, say, a revolution, but also a revolution's not going to happen. So you get to a point where your options are do nothing or simply suffer, I guess. Like, it's very, very frustrating. He said, cough, insert someone who loves the color orange. Jessica, no, we're not doing that. I don't understand how many times it has to be communicated to you that that thing that you just did is an incredibly dangerous thing to say. And also, by saying it in my chat, you are making my chat an incredibly dangerous place for everybody here. I do not know at what point this particular line of communication will get through to you, but I am timing you out for 10 minutes as the line of communication has not gotten through to you.
News segment that covered this.
A hostile turn of events at an East Tennessee commission meeting. A Sullivan County commissioner told a flock camera representative his boss needs to be publicly executed. Take a listen.
I believe that Flock right now is one of the most hated companies in America. They are one of the most corrupt companies in America.
So I want to agree with that statement. My problem is that a flock camera is nomenclature for any of these cameras right now. So, like, saying that, oh, specifically the flock person is an issue is no, let's not do that. It's all of it. It's all of the mass surveillance, all the license plate readers, all of the AI being used to scan us as we go out in reality. Like, that's what this is. Unfortunately, a lot of people, especially me until very recently, thought of Flock as the singular organization, but it's more than that.
And
yes, Jassa, I understand Flock is also a company. That was not me not understanding that. I understand that it is. That is also why I said Kleenex is what it's become. Those words were put together in that sequence for that reason. It is not a misunderstanding that Flock is or is not also a company. It is the broader understanding that you can astroturf to fight Flock while enabling other companies that are competing against Flock if you are not careful with how you are operating here.
quite frankly, sir, I don't think we can make America great again without hanging your CEO publicly for treason.
The man who is speaking there is Commissioner Joe Carr. Sullivan County is in the middle of deciding if the county will extend their contract with the license plate reading technology.
Jassa says, but he might be talking about a city contract with Flock. Right, that doesn't undermine anything that I'm saying. Also, I don't think that decorum of how he's supposed to be talking here matters a whole lot when he literally just said, I believe that you should be killed.
The cameras are highly controversial. Many local governments in East Tennessee are reviewing that technology and how it handles people's privacy. Right after the commissioner made
I mean, it doesn't handle people's privacy. That's the problem. It really doesn't. It's cyberpunk. It's welcome to mass surveillance. Congratulations. Have fun.
Comments, he was cut off and then the workshop went on. The commission will vote next week on that contract extension. Here is the final comment the Flock representative made to that commission.
And lastly, I hope that nobody here ever resorts to the idea of violence because it's despicable.
All right, so I understand you want to say, I hope nobody here ever resorts to the idea of violence because that's despicable. Anyway, I have a whole bunch of cameras installed everywhere that will allow the police to engage in their job better, which is, and I quote, making you follow the law at the point of a gun, which is, by every definition, violence. Man, I absolutely adore how selective we tend to be with this thing. It's the political violence thing all over again. It's the, no, you don't understand. I am against political violence, but I am also pro-military. Like, okay, cool. Well, what do you call half of the military operations if not violent in some way, shape, form, or method?
We did reach out to Commissioner Carr tonight, and he did give us a statement, but it didn't address his comment. Instead, he says Flock fears accountability, and that's why the company sent a public relations representative to the meeting.
First of all, very little shock in the room whenever he said that. Second, seems like look, obviously we don't condone violence or hanging or whatever.
Yeah, we have to say that as a news organization so that we don't get in trouble. Thank God I'm independent and I can at least be honest with my thoughts.
for treason of public CEOs. Luigi just pled guilty. But so I'm glad, to see accountability, right, for that. However, you have to see in context of all the stories that we've done, very much like when we covered the general backlash to.
I mean, with the Luigi thing, in context, we have to ask ourselves, what is the line of human bodies that one can create under themselves before it is justified to turn that person into a human body? And what actions can we reasonably attribute to somebody such that we can call them responsible for the bodies that they have put under themselves?
Healthcare, like in the aftermath of the Luigi Mangione murder, this is fascinating to me. This rise up and bubbling from the local to the national of the pushback against Flock. And actually, in my opinion, it is shaping out to be the way that it should have been in the beginning, which is holding not just the company, but the commissioners and all these other people accountable to make them at least address public concerns when you enable this mass surveillance across the US, as we have seen now with Flock announcing some pretty dramatic safety changes to the way that they administer the search function for law enforcement. I know you want to say something.
Well, I just want to point out the bipartisan nature of the concern here. I don't know this commissioner's politics specifically. However, the county he represents is rural. It is very conservative. So it would be likely that he shares some of those conservative values. You hear him framing his critique in terms of Make America Great Again, and him saying it's not possible.
Make America Great Again
is literally hungry.
Make America Great Again, not possible until we do more murders. I mean, again, on the one hand, I understand the sentiment, and I also think that throwing America's safety under the bus is a bad idea in general. Peltor says, I think 3 bodies before it's okay to do something about it. At that point, though, we then ask the question, what is doing something about it? Because, like, there's a line where you have to point out that we can't rely on vigilante justice because it can't be accounted for. Like, it is very hard to hold somebody to account when they are just, So I wonder how hard it would be to start a viral trend of doing basketball shots with sardines into Flock cameras. The problem is that if you did that, you would be easily identifiable. So maybe we don't start a viral trend of it happening. It just inadvertently happens.
For treason. So, rural areas are very upset because of this, like, sort of don't tread on me attitude. Urban areas very upset, blue, red, everywhere in between. And it's really hasn't bubbled up to elite political discourse in a way where candidates are grabbing onto this. Very little conversation of Flock cameras. I think Francesca Hong is like the only one I've heard bring it up really at all in terms of public discourse. So it's a deep concern and it's an issue for the taking. And to your point, Flock is starting to realize.
Jassa says a recent Yale study estimated over 100,000 lives a year would be saved with single player. I saw that in my news feed. I haven't read the study. Chaotic Kennedy Comics, thank you for reading your points, friend. Oh, well, I appreciate it. But I haven't read the study myself, but I did see that was a thing.
Is they've got a public relations problem. Because on the one hand, if you look at the numbers of the way these cameras have proliferated, it really is crazy. Because just a few years ago, this wasn't a thing. And now it's like a virus that it's just expanded. It's like COVID.
Okay, so no, that's incorrect. It wasn't just a few years ago this wasn't a thing and now suddenly it's here. No, it's been a systematic increase in public surveillance since 2001. If not earlier. You start with the Patriot Act. You start with people's phones being tapped. You go to every single messaging service being looked into. You go to people having to rely on IRCs in order to have encrypted messaging. You go to Signal and WhatsApp being leaned into because people have grown up in a world with the Patriot Act surveilling on them as much as it has. And then you get to this point now where the Flock cameras are installed. That's not a sudden overnight thing. That's the next logical step in what's happening thing. That's what that is. Zora says, I also don't agree with it's like a virus. No, viruses aren't deliberately spread around. I mean, so I can agree with like a virus, actually, because two things. One, we lived during COVID times. Actually, viruses did get deliberately spread around during COVID. That was a big point of contention, if anybody remembers. Two, a virus itself does try to spread itself. It's one of the reasons why the natural evolution of most viruses is to become more infectious and less deadly so as to propagate more. Jessica says, sorry for the Fed post. You're okay, Jessica. I just want to understand why it keeps happening.
Exponential growth. And so you do see some localities that are saying, you know, this really isn't worth it. My constituents are upset and we're getting all these false positives that are, you know, spoiling police resources where we're having to go after people and it's the wrong person. It's creating other public safety issues. You do see some localities pulling back, but not nearly at the pace of the amount that they have expanded and continue to expand. Flock, however, I think, Sagar, with this latest announcement, it demonstrates that it's a question whether these changes will really amount to much, but it demonstrates at the very least they're feeling a lot of public pressure.
Yes, exactly. So let's actually talk about some of that. Here's Flock's CEO announcing a major policy change after the Washington Post revealed that many law enforcement people were using it to stalk some of their own personal associates.
Jesus Christ. It said viruses don't deliberate, though. It's a natural occurring danger. Flock's not a natural disaster. I feel like I feel like we're looking at a metaphor and we are taking I'm not doing this, actually. I don't have to do this. I've given my reasoning. You can disagree with my reasoning. That's A-okay. I am okay with that. I think I should also point out at the same time, right now, it's okay for a metaphor to not be a perfect one-to-one. That's how metaphors work. That's how analogies work. It's close enough. Spread like a virus just means spread fast, not the same as spread deliberately versus not deliberately. I'm not doing this. This is silly. This is the confrontation I don't need.
Yes, including
Man of 1,000 names. Thank you for redeeming your points, friend.
Girlfriends, ex-wives, domestic disturbances.
We did cover that, though. We covered that shit. The police who were using it to stalk their wives and shit. Like, that's fucking gross.
Here's what he had to say.
We are taking one more step in addition to audit assistance. In July of 2025, we introduced an optional case code requirement for searches, meaning every search must be associated with an actual criminal investigation.
Zora says, I wasn't being really confrontational yet, though. Oh, fine. Do you need your daily dose of fighting with me? Because, like, if that's what you need, I can put my fisticuffs up. We can do that. Like, if that's a thing, if it's like morning coffee to you, Zor, then you know what? I'll put my fist up. I'll defend the virus claim. Okay, I'll do it. If that's what you need. I'm here to help. I'll be a friend. It's like fighting is like a hug sometimes. Jessica, thank you for doing your stretch.
Early results from participating agencies have been promising, so we will require case codes for all law enforcement searches by the end of the year. But because emergency situations do exist and do require immediate action, there will be a process to bypass this requirement. Every one of those searches will be flagged immediately by audit assistance for an administrator's review.
Administrative review. Now, as the community note actually says on their post, Flock added audit assistance, but
No, goddammit, stop condescending for fuck's sake. Oh my god. There we go. Okay, cool. Now we're in confrontational mode. Let's go. Okay, look, Zort. What I was saying is that I don't, as somebody who's reading and cannot tell whether you are actually trying to be confrontational, actually trying to be not, actually trying to be sarcastic or not, like, it read like a joke. The part where you said, but I wasn't being confrontational yet. When you put the yet there, it registered as a joke to me. And at that point, I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I can lean into the joke. I can play into it. If you feel like I'm actually being condescending there, then I apologize. That was not my intention. I misread what you said, thinking that that was a joke that I could piggyback off of.
They are not mandatory and or in place. Flock systems are routinely abused. Police are often using Flock to stalk their own love interests, and Flock shares data without permission in violation of several state laws. So you can go and fact check some of that. You also, let's put D3 up here just to show you that they are really trying to, create this idea that they're responding to concerns. We led the industry with 30-day deletion standard. Now we're going further. 7 days, that's enough time to support an investigation. If needed for an investigation, we're introducing evidence mode to support evidence preservation. Otherwise, the data is deleted. However, as we say in the community note, according to Flock's own blog post, existing customers will keep their current democratically approved retention periods.
I'm sure, buddy. I'm sure. Or we could just cut them all down. That's also an option. Just cut them all down. Like, it's okay to just cut them all down. That's fine. Like, that's an option we have. I mean, we can pretend that's not an option, I'm sure, but I'd rather us be realistic and point out that we don't need these things at all. So wasn't there a lady in Tennessee falsely connected to a crime? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
Customers who adopt the 7-day recommendation will receive evidence mode at no cost. Existing contracts override the new contract. So if your contract is in place for forever retention, 30-day retention, that is going to remain in place for the foreseeable future.
This is also just the default. Any locality can do whatever they want, but now instead of defaulting to 30 days, it defaults to 7 days. So, I mean, look, I want to say, I think people should really be heartened by the fact that these changes are being made. I think that some of them may result in a decrease in some of the abuse. The case number thing, for example, is something that some advocates have been pushing for, but I also don't want to look at this with like rose-colored glasses. This is more of a PR effort from Flock to assuage some of the public concerns versus a real foundational change.
Yeah, no. So like, this is the thing where you go, hey, I need you to just blow up all of these things. I need them not to exist. And your response is, well, we can change some of our protocols behind how they're installed. That's not what I wanted. That's not what I asked for. Well, we can kind of change things a little bit. No. I don't want a little bit of change. I want them all gone. Just all of it. None of us want them. Like, honestly, left, right, center, I can't think of very many people in political discourse right now that actively want these cameras to be a thing in their communities. I can't.
Because the reality is, even with all of these changes, what are people really upset about with Flock cameras? It's the idea that you, as a regular person, not committing any crimes, minding your own business, or driving on the road, or walking down the street, and having the details of you and your license plate and all of these things recorded and tracked. That's what people are upset about. It's not that it's kept for 7 days or 30 days. Or, I mean, it certainly is the possibility of abuse, which has been shown to be a major problem with this. But it's just the normalization of day-to-day mass surveillance, whether you quote-unquote deserve it or not. And so none of these changes really get to the root of the problem because they can't. Because the root of the problem is the cameras themselves, and obviously Flock is not going to, willingly go away and put themselves out of business. The ACLU wrote up, I thought, a good, very reasonable post about all of this. They go through some of the problems, some of the loopholes that are there in a lot of these changes. Despite new updates, Flock's creepy cameras remain major civil liberties threat. So, for example, as we were just discussing, the default deletion is now 7 days, but that doesn't mean that's required. There are ways to get around the case number requirement, as he even indicated in that video. A lot of this continues to be how these processes work, continue to be very opaque. And the devil, as we know, can be in the details. So is this more of sort of a rosier picture they're painting, or are there teeth to some of these changes that they're making because there is so little public?
Yeah, again, it's one of those things where, like, technically, what we need is for these not to exist. What we need is for these to be gone. But that's not what's going to be happening. That's not what they're willing to do. They're not willing to just let these cameras disappear overnight, despite that being what the public wants more than anything in general. They are going to keep fighting to keep these things there because for Flock, having these cameras around means that they can get customers in law enforcement. And like it or not, America does fall under the description of a police state. So they are going to fight to keep these things around because their number one customer is going to be the United States government. And that's not good. It is just the reality of the situation. And if you have the United States government, an entity that functionally has unlimited money, as your customer, why would you ever give up that customer? You're not going to. You're going to do everything in your power not to. Still don't really bother other reports of them pointing the things at a splash pad. Oh, trust me, I get it. I get it. That's a good reason to be upset. That's a good reason to be frustrated. Like, children are a pain point for most people, and for good reason.
Transparency, it's very hard to say, including they're also making automatic this audit feature, which has been successful in catching some of these blatant abuses of the system, including stalking that, people are facing charges over, police officers in particular facing charges over. We don't know, though, what fraction of the abuses were caught. Right? Are they catching most of the cases? There's some 50 plus cases of abuse that we know about. Or is that just the tip of the iceberg? We really have no idea because there's so little transparency.
I think this is just this is exactly what it feels like to live in a very low trust country. So
So I actually watched a video a while ago that pointed out that like the hyper surveillance state, I didn't even know that the term for that was a low trust society. But apparently it is. Yeah, like it's just you're in a low trust society. Didn't occur to me that was what that word meant, but now I know.
So really what it is, like there are tons of countries. I think London might be the most mass surveilled city in the Western world. I forget in terms of the per capita cameras. I don't see a large pushback in London. Now, maybe it's because their population is more compliant. I think it's largely also.
It might be that they were a monarchy first. So like you start off as a monarchy, you're going to be more likely to be okay with government overreach. I don't know. Maybe it's just baked into your society at that point. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not in the UK, so I don't know what the political situation is there where that's concerned. But my guess would be that if you are already used to having a very, very top-down system, the like hyper-individualist system we have here in America might be a bit of an anathema to you. So you're more okay with that kind of surveillance. You're more okay with those liberties being gone. I don't know if that's the case. Like, I'm not familiar with the culture enough to make that claim outside of like just hip-fiery, spitball-y stuff. It said they either red teamed their systems, recognized. I don't know what red teaming their system means. Armor Quills. I've never heard that term before.
So that they're like, yeah, I like the Metropolitan Police. I don't feel like we're being, I don't feel like I distrust them, like, let's say, in the same way. Whereas in the US, right and left, do we really trust like the elites and the locals who are in charge to administer things on our behalf? I've given my example. Like, I think it literally would lead to San Francisco. In any blue jurisdiction, I think it will lead to literally like anarcho-tyranny, where a guy who speeds gets a ticket while there are crackheads and fent heads literally smoking in a parking lot, and the police don't do anything about it. Vice versa, during COVID.
Okay, so can I give a response to that real quick? A person being on cocaine should not be a crime. Just like in general, the idea of somebody just being on a drug that should not be a criminal offense. I'm sorry. It's one of those things that like we have very hyper normalized in America, and I don't like it. I don't like the idea that just taking a substance should be something that is worthy of you going to jail or having a derogatory term made up about you and your habits, when like what you really need is help. Like, addicts don't need to be thrown into fucking jail. Addicts need to be given help and support and have a social network around them. That's what they need. That's one of the reasons why any of our methods of getting people off drugs that help, like, there's a community aspect to all of them. There has to be. Because if you don't have a community aspect to giving people help, then what reason do they have to continue getting help? Like, a lot of the reason that people end up on drugs in the first place is because they don't have other things to do, or they are severely depressed or anxious, or life is awful. And one of the things that makes life less awful is having people around you that are friends and family, or just otherwise have your best interest at heart. So cigar is a real issue on drugs. I don't get them started on weed. Is a cigar as a real big issue on drug? Are you talking about has? Like, has an issue with drugs? Maybe I'm reading incorrectly. Like, the reason I hated people who bring up COVID is like, yeah, thanks for reminding me of trauma. Seffi, I apologize, but people around you talking about things is something that you must adapt to, not the world around you.
You know, can you imagine? Can you imagine what they would have done in a state of California to enforce lockdown when people were getting locked up going to the beach in San Diego? And remember the Grim Reaper and all that on the beach? That was totally crazy. And then in the Trump administration's hand, or if you live in Alabama or someplace like that, I mean, just imagine what some of these yokel elected sheriffs will be doing to do this, you know? Yeah, if you're so concerned about, you know, weed or petty crime, something like that, that's, of course, what they would be using it for.
Yeah.
So you could see like the rife abuse. And that's what I just mean. Like, we don't have local buy-in to our elites. We don't actually trust them to administer things on our behalf. And I don't think that we should.
Well, and I also think the fact that these things proliferated without anyone knowing what was going on is a big part of the problem too, because it's not like there was any democratic buy-in here. There was
nobody, like, we didn't get to have a conversation. It just happened overnight. Sources, I like how the standard for what's catastrophically bad is that a beach is closed. So, yeah, no, but I think it's because if you think about it, like, a beach is one of the lowest impact economy things. It's one of those things that, like, it takes a decent bit to maintain, but it's a thing that brings in money because people happen to be there, as opposed to it having, like, a deliberate monetization method outside of the local economy that is there, right? So if a beach is closed down, an area that should have been the least affected by COVID because you're able to spread out and be far away from everybody, an area like that being shut down by COVID is indicative of how fucked up things were at that point. Jessica says, I feel if you're selling drugs, you should get a punishment. Why? Why should you? Why? If taking the drugs isn't a problem, then selling the drugs, why should that be an issue? Why? Like, I'm curious why that one should be a problem. Now, bear in mind, Jessica, my alternative is to treat drugs like alcohol, where somebody has to show ID, and these things are sold in a place where we can track and make sure that people are okay. That would be my preference. So if you're saying, like, oh, somebody sells drugs to a minor, sure. Like Fet, because it's literally something that's killing people. I've known someone who sold some and and he died from it, or who got sold some and he died from it. Right. So what you're saying is your personal experience and your personal issue is that you know somebody who has died from it, and therefore you think that everybody's situation is identical, and therefore they should be punished, even if the reason that they are selling a drug is to make sure that their family doesn't starve. Like, I'm sorry, but I feel like when you have a system like that, all you do is you add power to the cartels, because cartels thrive on drugs being illegal. Drugs being illegal drives up their prices. It increases the need for them to have weapons. It increases the demand for them to be armed. And therefore, they end up making a lot more money by those drugs being illegal, whether it is on the user end or the seller end. Someone says, would it make you feel better if you were given a license, just like a liquor license? Yes. Yes, it would. Soccer says, imagine banning selling bread because some people added plaster to it. You sound like somebody advocating for that. Yep. All right. That said, flock cameras, fuck them, burn them, treat them like data centers. Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Britzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Victoria, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitta, you know I'm not saying that last part, Sylvie Snow, Valis of Seraph, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.